Hi everyone, welcome back to another Tea with Uga. A few weeks ago I had a request from one of my subscribers to talk about tips for when you just join a new work, a new job. And so I would share a few tips and illustrate them with examples. Now, to avoid any risks, I'm not going to say whether these are personal examples or not. I will just use a hypothetical person and you can infer the situation. I'm a consultant, so the joke is that we always start any answer with "it depends," right? If this is your first job, then the tips would be, assuming that you came straight from college or some other form of education, the tips would be about how do you best transition from a study setting to a work setting, and also what do you keep from your habits. So one of the things that are really good about being a student is that you get a certain schedule. You have dedicated time slots for classes, and then a time for socializing, a time for doing homework, and all of these kind of things. And sometimes what happens when you join the professional life is that everything becomes just a very big slurry, where you start your day, you don't know what happened during the day, and then you finish. So if at all possible, try to carry that structuring of your day. So where, assuming you work 8 or 9 hours a day, make sure that you have time for learning, you have time for a specific task, you make sure to rotate between the different type of people that you're working with, etc., etc. So making sure that you have a schedule and you stick to it is something that will set you apart from people who, the moment they're no longer told what to do every hour, just look like a deer caught in headlight. So try to really structure your work for yourself. Second element of transition is something I just briefly mentioned here, which is the expectation of how much supervision you will get. There is nothing more grating than somebody who comes to you every hour asking for tasks. Again, this depends on the line of work, but if we assume that you are in a line of work that is relatively intellectually demanding, there is an expectation of your ability to figure things out. So it's fine to ask questions, but don't ask questions without even thinking about what an answer could be. So for instance, I could have a person, I would tell them, please make sure to fill out this file with all the contacts from the clients that we come across. And I send him a file as an example. When he comes back and says, do you want me to delete the existing names from the sample file? How do you think I would think about that person's intellect when I said, here is a sample file for you to know what the structure looks like. It's from another project. Can you make sure that you now fill this template with something from this project? Like, I know it's a yes or no answer, but it makes me think that you didn't even pause for 3 seconds to realize, oh, she said it's a sample. She said use it just for the format. This is a completely different project. These people, clients, have never ever crossed. It's a completely different industry. Why would I want to know the name of the executive assistant to keep it for this project's client list when it is from another client in another country? Like, these things, nobody, I know, obviously using extreme examples, which unfortunately are real, it's only to illustrate how these things come across when you do 100 of them. It's not about doing 1 or 2. It's when you constantly come back to do these things. Now, you need to know that the people you work with are your colleagues. That includes your manager. They're not your teachers. They're not there to give you a task every single time. You need to know how, understand what needs to be done, walk people through your thinking process, because that's what gives them the assurance that you know what to do. And if you don't know, they will correct. So if we contrast this example with somebody who is a new joiner, etc., and would do things the right way, what we'd say is something like, look, we need to make sure that we set up the logistics for this project. Then they could answer by saying, okay, so for me, my understanding logistics for a project, it means the meetings, contacts, locations. Is there anything I'm missing? And say, no, that's pretty much it. And then they go, I'm happy to think about a way to organize all of this. Do you have a preference for how you do things? Is there a place where I could look? I'd say, I have no preference. There are a couple examples from other projects. Let me pull some things together. Look at that, see what you can do, and then let's discuss. Again, these are, I'm giving examples of when you work at a job where you're supposed to do impactful work. So it's not something that is repetitive. It's not something that is very, very regimented. It's more free than that. Obviously, if you're in a factory setting and you need to be on a production line and you're told to screw this way at this angle for this long, that is a process that you follow. But if the essence of your job is to be creative, like let's say you're an assistant brand manager, or you are about to do something in marketing, or you're going to be working with agencies to brief them, etc. You want to know the procedures, and that's something that you will need to absorb, but you don't want people to feel like they have to have a second full-time job just babysitting you. One way to not be that person who's always who looks like the student, the itinerant student, is to look at peers who were in your shoes just 6 months ago or a year ago. So it's always good to have a couple buddies at work to ask the very, very repetitive questions. So for example, I show you your file, and then you have a go at it and you still don't get it. You can come to ask me, or you could just figure out, oh, Adam has done my job 6 months ago. Let me have a quick chat with him, and then, do you have a minute for a coffee? Yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. This is what I thought about. What do you think? Obviously, don't go to the same person all the time, because then all what you're doing is transferring the annoyance you'd cause me to them. So that's the extreme of being really not knowing anything. Now, to balance this out, recognize that you also bring something to the table. Obviously, if it's a very technical job, you're not bringing much, but what people signed up for is your potential. So don't feel bad every time that people are correcting you. Make sure that you keep that thinking that I am here because somebody believed that eventually I can become productive. So although you're going to have lots of different you make mistakes, you'll be slower than people, and etc. Know that if you didn't have potential, people wouldn't have gotten you in. So just balance this out. For more practical tips, always keep a notebook. Any piece of feedback that you get, write it down. Regularly make sure that you work on the feedback that you get and that it's actually incremental. That means that if I gave you feedback on something, I really do not want to have to give you the same feedback 3 weeks from now. Ideally, whenever I say something, I say it once. So for instance, let's say you are making a presentation and I tell you we have some norms. I expect if there is a number mentioned in the title, I need to see somewhere on the slide that same number and understand where it came from. When I told you this, that means that going forward, any slide that you make that has a number in the title will have that number shown again in the slide with an explanation. If 3 months from now you make that rookie mistake, I assume that you're not coachable. So make sure that everything you absorb is actually incremental. Show that you are dependable. It's okay to make a mistake when it's your first time. It's not okay to make a mistake, be told very patiently how to fix it, sometimes in multiple different ways, and still make it again. Similarly, if you are in a meeting and you are talking to someone, always make sure that you are clear on the actions, you're taking notes. One of the worst things you could do actually at any level, but a lot of newcomers do this, is that you're sat in a meeting and people are talking, I am explaining, do this, do that, for this thing, let's change this color into this, let's replace that word, let's make sure we get a different data source for that, etc., etc., etc. I say it the first time, I then re-say it, and then I re-summarize, okay, so just so that everybody on the same page. What we said is that we're going to replace this column with that column, we're going to change the source, and we're going to change this wording. All clear? Yeah. 2 hours later, I'm reviewing everybody's deck, and you did not do the changes. So effectively, you were sat in the meeting nodding, and you did not take your action points. Once you do this, I immediately know that I don't want to work with you again, because you wasted my time 3 or 4 times in a row, and I took the time to explain everything, and you just nodded. On the other hand, if you are like my superstar, what you did while you were in the meeting is that as we were talking, as I was saying the steps, you had on your notebook or on a sticker or on a post-it, action 1, action 2, action 3. I'm doing this, I'm changing this, I'm changing that. Right after the meeting, you actually go to your actions, the 3 or 4 bullet points you got from this meeting. You had taken other bullet points throughout the day because of an email, because of a chat, because of a random discussion, and you see where do these 3 actions fit with the rest of the to-dos that I have, and then you start working on them. When you do this, and then after 2 hours I see that you have done what I asked for, or that you have done 2 out of the 3 because there were other actions on your plate that were more prioritized, I have confidence in you. And then I want to have you on my projects going forward, because I don't feel that I had a meeting in the morning, a meeting in the afternoon, I walked you through the stuff and you wasted my time in both instances and still did not get the thing done. Because it takes a lot, it's magnitudes of time for me to explain than to do it myself. But my job is not to do it, my job is to show you how to do it and to make you really good at it so that you can also progress. Be present in meetings. I give you an example of 2 different people. So the first one, she goes into the meeting, especially now virtually, but it's also valid face-to-face. And you're talking and everybody's talking and contributing, and she's just doing like working at her emails and doing a slide, etc., etc., because it's a team meeting and everybody's discussing, and she'd rather just progress on one slide. That is the most unprofessional, disrespectful thing you can do. What makes you think that your presence is sufficient, as in just your physical or picture presence? Nobody in that meeting would feel that actually they're missing out if you're not in that meeting, if all you're doing is work on something else. You're distracted, you're distracting, and you are causing inefficiency. Because while you were playing on your slide, important things were being said, and you missed on your actions. And then when you get something wrong, when you get an action wrong, or when everybody uses a specific, we all decided to move to a specific word or phrasing, and you're still using the old one, that means that you delayed the entire team. And that is really a sinker. Nobody wants that. So that's that girl. Then I have another girl who actually would go into the meeting. she would actually listen very actively. I see her nodding at the right time. I see her taking the action points when she needs to take them, and she asks relevant questions, be it for her section or for other people's work. She's learning about her work, but she's learning what other people are doing. So when I see this person, I know that her presence in the meeting added value. I know that she got value from the meeting. I know that when she asks a question, it's because she absorbed everything. And you better believe I'm going to spend more time coaching her because she respects my and the team's time than the other person who was just playing around. When I say be present in the meeting, a skill that you will need to develop is to balance how much you listen and participate and how much note-taking you do. I have seen an extreme of people just going in the meeting like this. They are in the meeting and they just type in. You know, in this day and age, if I wanted a scribe, I could just use AI and get the entire meeting transcribed. Learn how to take notes efficiently. And it's not the notes where you're playing with highlighters and you're writing in bubble writing and all that stuff and it's all pretty and cute. And it's not the notes where you're just scribing like a zombie and you're not actually understanding anything. It's a smart way of taking notes. What are the actions? What are the key changes? What are the key messages? What are the questions that we're leaving with? And what are the most important hypotheses? Who do I need to follow up with? When you have these things, you will have your own note-taking system. Once you develop this, and it will evolve over the years, it will make you a superstar because people feel your presence in the meeting. People don't rely on you for meeting minutes, you know, because when you're that person who anyway writes every word, then what you teach people is that your presence is only there for scribing. So everybody gets to have the face time, everybody gets to get the intellectual enjoyment. And if they miss a sentence or two, let's just go and ask Kevin, because anyway, he wrote everything. Don't be that person. What else? I think it's good to show that you're a bit tough. You would have noticed from the style of this video that I'm not smiling and motherly and caring and, you know, and telling you, oh, you've got this and all that. Because I want this video to be really a true representation of work life. This is not school where people have a duty of nurturing you. This is work. Even when you are at a non-profit, you have objectives. You need to get things done. Now, this is not a charity. We're not here to build you as a person and nurture you, etc., etc. And so you won't always have a manager who's very caring. I happen to be on the very caring end of the spectrum, but I also prepare my team that there is no right or wrong way of managing. There is no right or wrong way of managing. I'm talking about styles. I'm not talking about practices. Obviously, people make mistakes and you have good and bad and excellent in everything. But I'm saying that some people are more cerebral, some people are more introverted, etc., etc., etc. So learn to work with different types of people. Know that it is competitive out there, but it needs to be a collaborative work environment. Even in jobs where people think that it's pretty cutthroat, like investment banking, you still have to work with other people because you're working on a project together. Now, who gets to sign the deal is a different story, but that's not an entry-level thing. So be okay with self-motivating, with being able to re-energize, get your things done and get an emotional, physical, and mental balance, even if you don't have people telling you, good job, you're doing great, here's a gold star, etc., etc. Because I have seen these type of people who need to have positive feedback after every single interaction. And that is exhausting. I'm not your father. That is really exhausting. I'm not going to be telling you, good boy, after every single interaction. So toughen up and make sure to have the right balance. If you need validation, if you need to feel good about yourself, work is not the first place to go for this. Obviously, you want to make sure that you have a good environment, but if you're a type of person who needs to be told how amazing they are and be reassured every single time, you need to do some work on yourself. So this video is very, very, very tough, and it's on purpose, because I wish a lot of the newcomers I have would have had somebody tell them this. I tell this to all my mentees. Some of them need the advice more than others, but the change is always, always impressive, because it's not about your intellectual ability, it's just about what is the schooling model you went through. And I have just noticed that a lot of people go through a lot of hand-holding, and you're not supposed to go to the extreme, but by showing that you have a backbone, by showing that actually you are not the person whom everybody needs to babysit, you will be a valuable team member. And you will see that actually you will go up very, very, very quickly, because people start seeing you as a team member, not as a liability. You no longer, because that's the thing. Sometimes people, and this is life. Sometimes people would rather have people who are colleagues who are ready than colleagues they have to train, because it can be so exhausting. So these are some of the tips. Very harsh. But, you know, I'd rather give you the very harsh tips in this platform, and then you can get the positive ones elsewhere. Because I think people don't volunteer the harsh tips quickly. Next video is going to be about what you do when you move from your very first job to your second job, when you just done that transition. And then the third video is going to be about when you are mid-career and you're doing a switch. So I hope you're enjoying this content, and if you have any other topics you'd like addressed in Tea with Uga, let me know in the comments.